Tonight we have a special one-hour edition of the show where young Israelis and Palestinians face off about the issues that divide them. Hello and welcome. All this week we'll be coming to you from Israel and the Palestinian territories as one side celebrates its 60th birthday and the other side mourns 60 years of loss. Today we've brought young men and women on either side of the dividing line linked together by satellite to discuss their future and the main issues that concern them in this troubled part of the world. Here in Ramallah, we have a gathering that includes some Palestinians who've lived their entire lives under Israeli occupation and others who were born abroad and moved back here more recently. Basically, they represent a large portion of the Palestinian experience since the establishment of the State of Israel 60 years ago. And joining us from Tel Aviv, we have a group of young people who represent the Israeli experience. Some were born abroad and some in Israel. Now, I'd have loved for everyone to have been together in one space, in one place, but it's very hard for both sides to meet each other personally. Palestinians have a hard time getting a special permit required to enter Jerusalem or Israel, and Israelis generally avoid traveling to the Palestinian areas for security concerns. So we have linked them together today by satellite. And I want to welcome all of you. And if I could start in Tel Aviv with Noah Ben-Gur and ask, tell us where you were born, where you came from, how you got to where you are, but also if you believe that Palestinians have a genuine will to achieve peace with Israel.
My name is Noah Ben-Gur. I was born here, moved to the States, then came back here for first grade. I really think that there is a will, and I think that what we're getting from both sides through means of communication is just a one-sided view. I do believe that in everybody's wishes and best interest is to not live in fear and live in a prosperous society.
An optimistic view there from Noah, and if I move back to here in Ramallah and ask Mohammed Al-Safin on the other perspective, tell us where you're from and the other perspective on the hopes for peace.
Sure. Well, I was born in the Khan Yunis refugee camp in Gaza, and I think my story is fairly typical of the Palestinian experience. My grandparents lost their homes in a village in what's now become Israel, and they continue to live in this refugee camp 60 years on. I lived overseas and I've come back here to study in the West Bank, and like most people from Gaza who are in the West Bank, I'm here in what the Israeli military would call an illegal presence, because I'm not allowed to be in the West Bank as a Gazan, and I'm not able to see my family in the Gaza Strip. As for prospects for peace, well, I think Israelis, like Palestinians and like everyone else in the world, they naturally aspire to peace and security. But as long as they maintain an occupation and they maintain the continued denial of Palestinian rights, it's very hard to expect Palestinians to agree to such a status.
Let's go back to Tel Aviv and Omar Penez, if I could ask you your story and also your view on what you think, how you think the 60 years of division has affected the prospect for peace.
Well, I've been thinking about it quite a lot, and especially because of the Independence Day that just happened last week, 60 years. And I can tell you that 10 and 20 years ago, the situation was much different. It only escalated in the past 10 years to be what it is today, where both sides can't agree on anything and there's a lot of fighting going on. And it's not anymore an extreme position to be offensive on each side, but it's quite mainstream. And that is escalating to I don't know where, but not to a very good place. And hopefully my aspiration is that people can see that the road to peace is possible and it's been tried and it will be successful eventually.
Diala Shamas, you were born and raised in Jerusalem, weren't you?
Yeah, I was born and raised in East Jerusalem. And I went to university in the States for 4 years, and I was actually born in Ramallah, or we were living in Ramallah, but we were forced to move out in order to maintain our East Jerusalem ID. And so we've been in Jerusalem.
Do you think that you will see peace in your lifetime?
I don't believe that it's as difficult as a lot of people make it out to be. All we need is some very dramatic shifts in the basic ways that the conflict is viewed and the current track that we're on.
Moshe Behar, welcome you to the show. Tell us a little bit about your background and then give me your perspective on where the prospects for peace stand.
Hi, Riz. I was born in New York, and when I was 12 years old, my family fulfilled the 2,000-year Jewish dream, and we made Aliyah to Jerusalem, where I live today. About the prospects for peace, well, I'd say that in the past 10 or 15 years, they've been very adversely affected, especially when the Palestinians refused the offer that was given to them in Camp David in 2000, when they turned down the offer that was made to them to have their own state. And instead started the second intifada and started blowing up in, sending suicide bombers to Israeli cities. I'd say that the situation has gone quite a ways downhill from there.
Okay. On this side in Ramallah, I want to bring in Amal Bakr. To what extent do you think that really reflects what you hear, certainly either in the media or here, about the prospect for peace? And tell us also how you came to be where you are.
I was born in the States. My parents had moved to the States before 1967, and we moved back here in 1982 or 1981 when I was only 2 years old. So basically, I was raised here in Palestine, in Ramallah. And I was a witness to both intifadas, a child in the first one and now as an adult in the second one. To me, I think the media, it's completely unfair as a Palestinian on how the whole situation is showed. However, when we were talking about in 1948 and now after 60 years, what is going on now, it's a very slow suffocation of the Palestinian people to a point that it's not enough to be shown on TV. And this is one way that Israel now is using or has been using it for 60 years now.
Let me bring in from Tel Aviv Fadi Shbeta, who actually you're in a unique position in this group as well, because you're essentially a Palestinian who's got an Israeli citizenship. And I wonder, just tell us basically your family history and what you believe, looking at peace prospects from that side, what hopes there are.
Well, my family background is I'm coming from a displaced family. Our village has been destroyed in 1948. It's somewhere like 3 kilometers from Tiri, where I had been born and raised. Now I'm living in Yafa. So we can see our lands, we can go there, but we cannot get our lands back because the state of Israel confiscated our lands. And there is something like a third of the Palestinian population within Israel that are displaced. And even in this case, we are citizens of Israel because by chance we stayed in the other side of the border, but still we cannot have our lands back and the state of Israel allocating lands just for Jewish purposes. And I think when we are talking about peace, the question if we mean the situation to be quiet with having a systematic oppression, or we mean a just peace of dealing with the past, dealing with the catastrophe that had happened to the Palestinian people when the state of Israel was established, and build a shared reality here. And usually when the Israeli side is talking about peace, he's talking about the situation being quiet after colonializing most of the Palestinian lands and keeping the occupation, but he wants the Palestinian people to be quiet. So obviously I think that we shifted to a very bad situation because the violence is totally out of control. But I think that pressure, that when you have a lot of pressure, then the situation will explode. And obviously this is what is happening now. But dealing with the situation is dealing with the deep roots of the conflict, with the issue of land, with the issue of occupation, of refugees, and so on.
We'll touch on some of these. Now, because of our time constraints, we're going to take a very short break here. We want to get the views of the remaining panelists on both sides when we return. Don't go away.